Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lecture on classical sociological theory. In our last lecture, I give a general understanding of structural functionalism, Durkheim's contribution to structural functionalism. And in today's lecture, I will dig a little bit further and talk about Talcot, Parsons, and his contribution to structural functionalism. Talcot Parsons is an iconic figure in sociology, more so in the history of structural functionalism. Actually, he's credited to have introduced the concept of structure in the functionalist theory. So he is the person who gave the best understanding of social structures through this social systems theory. He was a president of American Sociological Society, and as an evolutionary thinker, he created this very complex and dynamic theory. According to Parsons, social systems consist in a plurality of individual actors interacting with each other in a situation which has a physical and environmental aspect. And actors who are motivated in terms of tendency to the optimization of gratification, which means that optimization of gratification is optimizing the living better in social systems, and whose relation to their situations, including each other, is defined and mediated in terms of systems of culturally structured and shared symbols. So he's not only contributing to structural functionalism, he's bringing two things together. He's talking about structural functionalism. Also, he's bringing all this symbolic interactions ideas to the structural functionalism. So social systems, his social system incorporates within the framework of structural functional form, which is the byproduct of social systems. One of the famous sociologists, Alec Kolonikos, told that social systems represents the first full statement of what Parsons calls structural functionalism. The central concept used by Parsons to explain the pattern of social evolution is the structural differentiation, which refers to the tendency of social institutions to become more specialized. This system, this structural system, is functionally more specific to specialize to deliver a wide range of activities and services, such as role allocation in society, that people have, that resources are distributed or rewards are distributed, value-laden social institutions like economic, educational, civil services, and political systems, and etc., which are major aspects of social structure. They have to function within the integrated social structure. Society or an organization to exist must have a structure before it can deliver any function. So usually, social structures are structures based on their functions, but they need to have the structure before they can deliver any functions. For example, when we talk about family, we say that what kind of family structures do we know? We know nuclear families, which is mom, dad, and children. We have extended families, which is mom, dad, and their parents, maybe aunties and uncles. And we have single parent households, for example, one parent, mom or dad, and children. So each family structure delivers a certain function. For that, they have to become a structure first. Then they can deliver some functions in society. For example, extended family structure is a great way of supporting family, that you can support, for example, that family support children to raise their kids, right? And also they support elderly. So this structure has its function as supporting family members, both youth or young and older people, and also providing home for the whole family. Also in the cases of, for example, the wars, or if people lost their lives early, the family, the extended family, would support their kids as well. It had a very important function traditionally in society. Later on, this extended family structure broke down into nuclear families. Now society needed like daycares or that kind of stuff, because there wasn't elderly to take care of children, and then elderly needed maybe homes when their kids are making their own families and just organizing this nuclear family. Now elderly parents needed homes to stay. So this is what Talcot Parsons is talking about. In his social systems, there's no place for individualism, but in his system, there's a place for all individuals who would play their important parts or roles to contribute to build society. In his systems, an individual plays two roles, one as a member of the family and the other as a member of the community. So based on these two roles, I can't speak today, member of their family and member of community, they become a member of society. In both roles, person has to follow the rules of society, which will guide them through to achieve all the goals of the social systems. Let me share my PowerPoint with you and just talk about social systems a little bit further. There you go. So this is Talcot Parsons, and I found this very fancy way of showing you structural functionalism. Isn't that cool? So here you go. What is social systems? Social systems is a network of relationships between individuals structured by norms, values, and shared meanings. It functions to maintain social order and coherence through these relationships. The systems comprises interdependent elements that work together to achieve balance and stability. So usually I really don't care about definitions too much. But when we have online classes, definitions will become very important. Why? Because when I'm teaching in class, I just take my marker and I just draw all these pictures of structures and individuals and what's the norms and values to show students how really it looks like in society. But with you have to pay attention to the definitions. So social system is a network of relationships. So this is network between individuals, and that has also norms, values, and shared meanings. When we think about structural functionalism, we have this idea of there are all different kinds of social institutions. Each social institution formed around their functions, like as I just mentioned, as family has so many structures, and the structured or shaped based on their functions, right? So we have social institutions. Each of them has their own norms and values. For example, when you go to the courtroom, there's certain kind of rules you have to follow. If you're not familiar with the rules of the courtroom, you have to look other people how they do that, or you have to ask them to represent you. It's that important. If you don't know what to do, you have to let other people to represent you. Once you learn what to do or learn the rules, then you can represent yourself. So that is internalization of the norms and values of that social institution. So by externalization, that social structures or social institutions will let you know what are the norms and values in their institution. By internalization, you learn them, and then you can interact with them. Otherwise, you cannot interact with them. So all these social relationships are then based on the social norms, values, and shared meanings. Another example can be when you go to a religious place. Let's say it's a mosque, it can be temple, it can be church, right? If you don't know nothing about that religion, that place is just a building for you. You don't understand the symbols, you don't understand norms, you don't understand the belief systems, therefore, you don't know what to do there. So once you learn or familiarize yourself with that norms and values, they can go and pray, right? So these are very important for Talcott Parsons' systems theory. You have to know the norms, values, and shared meanings to interact with them. It functions to maintain social order and coherence through these relationships. The system comprises independent elements that work together to achieve balance and stability. So they're independent, but they're also together. They need to work together to achieve something he calls equilibrium. Equilibrium is just a balance in society. And that was another part of structural functionalism, right? So his social systems theory has 4 parts. It has culture, it has social structure itself, personality, and social systems. So culture is shared beliefs and meanings that developed over the historical period that people who share this culture know what it is about. In my culture classes, I say like people were created or shaped in human societies, shaped in different parts of the world. They had their needs. They had a need of shelter. They had a need of language. They had a need of food. They had a need of clothes. So they used the environment around them to make them their own way. They made their own way of housing. They made their own way of clothes, food, shelter, all of them. And then that became their unique culture. And they named stuff based on what they created, and that became their language. So this culture had shared understanding of the stuff they made, their authorship, like they were author of their culture. Over time, cultures became too many, and then people started to share, and then there was shared understanding between cultures. So we learned different languages, for example, then intercultural connections started, right? So he's talking about this culture being in the center of understanding belief systems and values in society. And then personality. Everybody has their own personality, the way of externalizing who they are and internalizing what other people are sharing. And there are social structures, which is social institutions, the norms and values they have, and that's what they are interacting with other social structures. And then there's a social systems. That is the main components of social systems. For Talcott Parsons, the role of norms and values is enormous. Social systems rely heavily on shared norms and values. As I explained, what the culture is, that all people, all different societies have their own norms, values, shared belief systems. For Parsons, these are essential to ensuring that individuals within society cooperate and fulfill their roles effectively. Now, when it comes to roles, I think I have in the next slide. Yes, I'll talk about that in a bit. Norms or rules that guide behavior, while values are deeply held beliefs that orient behavior toward long-term goals. Now, norms, you have norms in your family. Maybe your family norms are somebody takes the dog out and that person every day does that, or takes turns. Everybody take turn to do that. So that is a norm. And if you have Sunday dinners, 5 o'clock every Sunday, that is family norms, right? What values is maybe your religion, maybe your belief systems, right? If you're on if you have democratic beliefs, that is your value system, right? So roles for Parsons is also another very important thing. Each person in a social system play a role. So our roles, these roles come with specific expectations, norms attached to them. For example, we can play so many roles in our society, right? You are a son or a daughter in your family, brother or sister to your brother, little brother or sister. Also, you're a student when you come to the university, and you can be a worker when you go to work. So you have so many different roles based on which social systems you're interacting with. So the role, for example, here on the screen, the role of a teacher involves expectations about behavior and interaction with students. As a teacher, somebody needs to come, bring their organized plan for teaching and teach students. You, as a student, expected to come to university, take your sociology course, pass this course, and move on to the next level. After a certain time, get your degree and go to, for example, economy to contribute to economy, right? So that is your role. Role expectations are key to maintain social order. So also, we have these different roles in society. The social resources are distributed based on our social roles. For example, you as a student have your seat in the university, you have an assigned professor comes and talks to you. That is resources being distributed to you as a student, UBC student or UFB student, right? So this is very important. An individual deviate too far from the expectations, the system experiences strain. Maybe it's not that. I would say, for example, if one person deviates from the expectations, like if student doesn't do their job, the system doesn't experience strain. But if people are deviating from their roles as a whole, it will be strain for the system. For example, if one of you are not doing your job as a student, it still should be all right. The person might fail the class or something like that. But if there's thousands of students that are not doing their jobs as a student, then there will be a strain in the system. But there are certain mechanisms exist to bring them back in line. So if you're not doing that well, so you can get a bad mark, or if you, for example, in today's world, we are using a lot of, like, there is a plagiarization is like, oh my God, right? EIUs or plagiarization. If they are not doing their job properly, there are policies to, for example, punish them, or there are certain kind of things that student cannot continue their work at the university. So that means that's the way of that's the mechanism to bring them back in line. So there are 4 functional imperatives and systems, subsystems, and that called AGIL model. And in that, Parsons is talking about adaptation, how the systems adapt to its environment, primarily handled by an economic subsystem. So how people adapt to their systems and how they change, right? For example, goal attainment, for example, the political system defines and achieves the goal of social systems. Goal attainment, usually that can be an individual level, or that can be in an organizational level, or it can be structural level, like in a larger scale structural levels. There are different goals, and the society works together to achieve that goals. Integration, the legal and cultural systems work to integrate the parts of society, ensuring social cohesion and solidarity. So if we are feeling somehow divided, and integration is all this legal systems, cultural systems, whatever the way we want to make the society work, the parts of society can integrate to goal attainment. Like if our goal is to create multicultural society, then we will follow that certain rules and regulations to create that society. If that's for example, in certain cases, certain places, there was about assimilation. So people had to integrate, the certain cultures had to integrate to the other culture. Latency or pattern maintenance, social institutions like family, education, and religion maintain and reproduce core societal values, stabilize society. So society is something that changes and stays stable at the same time. If you think about the history of societies, we can see that, that small societies shaped, and they had certain forms of social institutions. For example, elderly taught younger people how to hunt or gather, how to cook, how to do certain things. That was kind of, again, education as an institution. Also, there was like healthcare. Maybe they used herbs and other things to heal. And that was a healthcare system, for example. And now in our society, we can see we came a long way, and we have very established social institutions. So although we did advance within this structure, we change it so much too. And all the time, as we change, we maintain stability in society. So that's what he's talking about here, the pattern maintenance. The things change, but however, we keep this stability in society. And for Talcott Parsons, everything is about equilibrium and social order. And as we discussed in our last class, social structural functionalism is about all these social institutions work together to keep this stability in society. That's why it was criticized for not being able to explain change very much, right? And the Parsons continuing that equilibrium or balance in society. That he argues that social systems are self-regulating and seek to maintain stability. When one part of the system is disrupted, other parts adjust to restore the balance. For example, if there is economic turmoil in society, so all systems, education, employment, family, legal system, healthcare system, all of them feels this disruption, right? They feel this crisis. However, they adjust to what's going on in society to keep the balance. So by adjusting to the new situation, they keep this equilibrium. So that's the main idea behind Parsons's equilibrium. Or if there are changes, the other changes in the legal system, maybe it will be hard first for society. However, society adapts that new regulations and laws and then probably experiences some hardships. However, after a certain time, it finds its equilibrium, right? This equilibrium is achieved through institutions like law, education, family, which socialize individuals and keep the system stable. So from internalization and externalization, we internalize and externalize these new norms and rules. Therefore, we make adaptations to new changes. Structural differentiation. Over time, as I mentioned earlier, social systems change. However, that, for example, he says, over time, social systems become more complex and differentiated. In the beginning, within the one community, there was everything in there, like elderly taught younger people how to do things, right? Whatever they know, they pass the knowledge. That was education. And then they were also the ones who healed people, and they also participated in gathering or hunting or those kind of stuff. Over time, every institution became individual, more specialized. There are experts. For example, if we talk about healthcare system, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have other people work in that area, we have pharmacists, and also then we have, for example, people who experts of heart disease, brain disease, kidneys, or other. There is more specialized system. Also the legal system, maybe it was just the chief of the certain community making rules for community before. Now we have very specialized legal system. For example, family law is different, or there are different names like a business law or corporate law or whatever you call them. So they are very specialized, and it become more specialized and crispy, I like that word, over time. This process helps society to adapt to changing environments, but it also makes integration more challenging. And as Parsons argues, as this becomes very specialized, that's good for society because in one area we have its own experts. However, the integration is now also challenging because those people know that area well, and we cannot learn everything at the same time. So it makes it challenging as well. Functions versus conflict. Now that's another area Parsons emphasizes, that functional aspect of society which contrasts with the conflict theories. Now, structural functionalism was one of the theories introduced, and that was rejected or criticized by conflict theory, saying like, okay, fine, the structural functionalism tells us about how society is structured and functions, but it does not explain how we change. So society is about how to stay stable and how we change, right? It does not explain change. While he acknowledges that conflict exists in society, his theory focuses on how society manages and minimizes conflict to preserve stability. That is totally against the beliefs of Karl Marx and who followed him. And we will talk about that in our next lecture. Although Parsons systems theory is one of the very best theories to explain social systems, there have been quite a bit of criticism, and that is normal for academia. Like everybody who has the greatest ideas, there are other people has different ideas and they're great as well. So they criticize this great thinker. So Parsons wasn't immune to criticism. His theory is highly influential. The critics have been talking about his theory tends to overlook issues of power and inequality, conflict, focusing too much on social stability at the expense of understanding social change, as we already mentioned a few times. His critics also suggest that his model is overly deterministic, portraying individuals as too constrained by social norms and roles. That is another valid criticism. So it talks about like everybody is about the social norms. If you breach the norms, you will be punished by society or sanctioned by society. Society brings you back to the equilibrium. And then how does changes happen? For example, if the family is very strict about not getting married from outside of their culture, over time, new people will be introduced from different cultures by their children, by their daughters and sons. They have to adapt new changes to survive. Otherwise, there would be family breakage, right? They break down into small parts. So that is one example where Parsons or structural functionalism struggles to explain. So to bring all of them together, the key arguments is social systems are essential for maintaining order in society or equilibrium. Without the structure, without the structuring provided by social systems, society will descend into chaos. Equilibrium is the natural state of society. So society is balanced, and I give so much credit to that society. Although we change it, it stays stable usually, and that is equilibrium explains very well. Functionalism focuses on how different parts of the society work together, while conflict theories focus on struggles, inequalities, changes, and all other stuff. Structural functionalism tells us how societal institutions cooperate and fulfill basic functions and maintain stability in society. That was a little bit about social systems theory. If you have any questions, please write to our discussion board and I'll be happy to answer them. With that, I will thank you for your time and I will see you in our next lecture. Bye.